Living with daily persistent pain is exhausting. Even the thought of overcoming our pain seems insurmountable. Understand why pain is complex and learn actionable steps that will improve your quality of life. Now let's join Amber Kylick on A Path from Pain.
Sit up straight. Pull your shoulders back. Suck in that tummy. Sitting is the new smoking. Have you heard these things before? Have they been ingrained into your very being? Okay, first things first. Shake that shit out right now. Take a breath. Shake out your body. Find your wiggle. Then take another breath and allow yourself to move into gentle stillness for a minute. Start letting go of the bracing and the gripping. Then hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and let's dig into why posture isn't all it's cracked up to be. Yes, we've been told time and time again that our posture is everything. If you aren't sitting perfectly at your desk, you'll be in pain. If you're not standing tall, you'll be in pain. If you're looking down at your phone, you'll be in pain. Maybe you've heard that one shoulder is higher than the other, that one leg is longer than the other, or your pelvis is twisted. First, accept this. You are asymmetrical. You will never be perfectly balanced from the left side to the right side. And even if that was possible, it would not guarantee that the pain would disappear. Differences in your spine, pelvis, shoulders, and legs are also normal, and pain should not be directly attributed to these completely common variations. Do know that you can work toward balance, and it is a good first step to acknowledge that there are differences, but don't become hyper-vigilant about it or continue to blame all your problems and pain on it. And if you're working with a manual therapist about these things, ask them if it really matters. If they give you a black and white answer that it is very important, and if you ask them why, I'm sure they will give you a very rationally sounding answer. But maybe it's time to find someone new. Just a thought. With that said, understand one thing. Your best posture is your next posture. I can't remember who I heard say it, but it's true. Your body's not meant to stay in one position for very long, especially when it's being held there by tense, bracing, and/or gripping muscles. Like I started with, shake it out. Find your wiggle. Now, let's continue. I know you're asking, okay, so how does this work when I sit at my desk all day? I've been told that I need to sit ergonomically. Wait, do I really need all those ergonomic tools? Good question. Think about this. You're sitting at your desk and busy focused on a work project. Your focus is on work, likely not listening to the discomfort your body is starting to feel, partly because you've gotten into the pattern of unconsciously pushing those whispers away to stay focused on your work. Makes sense. But when we do this day in and day out, we get really good at unconsciously pushing through. Now, if you've listened to the first episode, and if you haven't, go and listen to it next. You'll know that when you push through whispering pain sensations, they often start to scream. So what happens at work? You ignore, continually focused on the task at hand, the deadlines, the meetings, the schedules, etc. The whisper discomfort now starts to scream to get you to move. On top of that, there is the complexity of pain and how many factors contribute, but we'll get to that in another episode. For now, I want you to know a few more things about your posture. There is no perfect posture. There's no strong evidence that sitting a certain way will exempt you from pain. Nor is there strong evidence that avoiding bad posture will exempt you from pain. But wait, that sounds like the same thing, right? Well, you've likely heard that you need to sit ergonomically and that will fix your pain. There's no solid evidence that this is the case. The reverse is true as well. There's no solid research-based evidence that avoiding slouching or avoiding text neck posture will keep you from pain. So here's a story of mine. One of the many doctor appointments I attended, I was given the following advice. If you need to pick something up off the floor, pretend you're wearing a mini skirt. In other words, don't just bend over and pick something up, but do it in a mini skirt polite squat to move with your legs and keep your spine upright and neutral. At the time, I was the mom of 2 little kids under the age of 4. Do you know how much stuff was on my floor day in and day out? Sure, I love doing squats, but seriously. Here's the thing. I've learned that avoiding that movement isn't a good idea either. And I've worked with many clients who stare at me in disbelief when I tell them that the next movement we'll be working on is a deadlift. The reason that I often teach a deadlift, and if you're interested, head to my YouTube channel and look up the deadlift exercise video. Don't forget to subscribe. The reason that I often teach a deadlift is that our stronger habitual movement pattern is to lift with our lower back muscles. And if you're living with back pain, I can almost guarantee that these muscles are holding so much tension and are so cranky. So if you ask them to support you bending over, they're going to protest. So if you can practice the movement with support from your hamstrings, most often that's your weaker movement pattern, you'll be able to build support for your lower back and in turn make a practical movement pattern easier. Not to mention, it also helps strengthen your glutes, and that's another thing we'll get to in another episode. So yay you! You've just shown that bending over isn't what's causing you daily pain. It was the lack of movement and maybe even the fear of movement being a contributing factor. Did you know that your posture changes based on your mood and beliefs? Think about how often you see a sad person and they're in a smaller, slouch type of position, or an angry person that's standing up for themselves, how tall they stand. Some posture is based on a belief that, like the one that society will accept me more if I look thin and tall. But understanding this can offer some insightful insight. If our feelings and emotion affect our posture, then how is staying in perfect posture helpful? We need to express ourselves, and if we don't, this can also be a contributing factor to our pain experience. Again, that's another episode. But with that being said, you'll hear this term come up time and time again in my podcast, kinesiophobia. It's the fear of pain from movement. This directly leads to that fear-pain cycle we talked about in the last episode. So, what about the spine? We've been told for years that it needs to be protected. Listen, your spine is robust and can be trusted with movement. It is meant to move. Often when living with something like back pain, we become so overprotective. Often because we're told so many things not to do that we become fearful of moving or loading the spine in any way. This also contributes to that fear-pain cycle. I remember one client that I worked with. They were told that because of their arthritis, they needed to avoid twisting. Can you imagine moving through your day and never twisting any part of your spine? So we worked on it. First, I had them load their spine from the side so that those twisting muscles could be put to work without actually twisting the spine. Next, we released the load, and with a little cueing, they were able to safely and confidently create a rotation. On that note, please know that constantly holding tension in your core will also not fix the pain either. In fact, that can directly contribute to your pain. By sucking it in and pre-bracing before movement, not only does it add to the kinesiophobia, but it's also the restriction of movement in spine when it's likely wanting to move. Remember that your joints work best and stay healthy when they are exposed to movement. And we'll be talking about this in another episode as well. All of these warnings about finding this perfect posture and staying there are so unnecessary and lead to so much fear. The bottom line is that nothing is black and white. Finding the perfect posture, being symmetrical, is not going to fix your pain. But chasing the idea of perfect posture, of being symmetrical, of being hypervigilant, that can lead to more pain. Everyone is different. Pain is complex. The good news is that with a little awareness, building a level of safety in different positions, we can start working on building your path from pain. So right now, take a breath, shake out your body, find your wiggle. Then take another breath and allow yourself to find a little bit of stillness for a minute. Now what you've found is what I call your positioning for that moment. It might change in 5 minutes. But let's change the narrative. 40 years ago, we were all about correct posture. And if you had back pain, it was bed rest for recovery. All the evidence-based research has shown us that these two things are no longer an appropriate recommendation. The spine is robust and adaptable. It is meant to move. Going back to a post I once read by Adam Meakins, who's a physio out of the UK, and he is very vocal about using science to update our old views of our body fragility. He said that if the spine was meant to stay in a neutral position all the time, it would look like one solid bone, like our femur, which is our thigh bone. Clearly, our spine is meant to bend, take load, and move. Instead of constantly talking about the structure of the spine in treatment, we need to be looking at discussions about physical activity, sleep, and stress. All things that we'll be talking about in podcasts coming up. Honestly, I could talk about this for days. Complex pain is not black and white. Everyone who experiences daily pain is unique and deserves to be heard so that you can learn to build a path from pain. Interested in learning more? Check out some of the articles, my YouTube channel, Critical Movement YYC, or even join me for the free 5-day Path from Pain program. Or message me to learn how I can help you build your path from pain. Either way, hit that subscribe button. If you like this episode, let me know why in the comments below. If you learned something that's helped you, consider supporting this podcast to help me keep producing content that can help others. In the meantime, I want to thank the research paper, Sit Up Straight, put out by Slater D. et al. In 2019, and Adam Meakins for his engaging Instagram posts.